Order. Is the motion seconded? The member for North Sydney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, the day before the election, this Prime Minister sought to differentiate between a carbon price and a carbon tax. It was this Prime Minister that sought to lead the Australian people to believe that she would not introduce a carbon tax, but she would introduce a carbon price. Now, she was the one that used the semantics. It was this Prime Minister, in an effort to win the people at the very last moment, before the last election, that sought to rule out emphatically a carbon tax. And it is this Prime Minister that has deliberately deceived the Australian people with her words and with her actions. It is this Prime Minister that, by doing that very deed the day before the election, she has now laid down before the Australian people her bankrupt integrity. Her bankrupt integrity, because that Prime Minister not only emphatically said that she would not introduce a carbon tax, she said to the Australian people, "Trust me, I am telling the truth." And therefore this Prime Minister, by setting that benchmark, this Prime Minister, after only a few months in her term of office, it isn't even 1 year that she has been the Prime Minister of this nation, and it doesn't give us any good wind. It gives us no satisfaction to be here less than a year into your Prime Ministership debating your integrity, debating your core integrity, debating whether you are honest and fit for the job. The Prime Minister has set the terms of this debate. We will stand up for the Australian people here. We will stand up for the honesty that is so absolutely necessary when it comes to everyone dealing with the cost of living in their homes. For this is a Prime Minister and a Treasurer that have set out to deliberately deceive the Australian people. Sitting with a new smirk, this Treasurer, before the last election, described allegations of a carbon tax as hysterical. He lied to the Australian people on Meet the Press. He lied to the Australian people in an interview with Kerry O'Brien on the 7:30 report, and he sits there with a warm smile because he, like no other Treasurer, has introduced more taxes and increased more taxes than any person in memory, and he didn't have the courage to front the press conference. He didn't have the courage to look the Australian people in the eye and say, "I am going to increase your cost of living. I am going to do that." No, this is not a man with a ticket for the job. This is a weak and insipid man, a man who always takes the easy options, and he is following a Prime Minister who is equally weak and insipid, because at the very moment when the Australian people are asking for trust, we have a Prime Minister that then sets out to mislead the Australian people and to seek their support based on an untruth. Some people might call it a terminological inexactitude. It is a tax. It is a tax. And as Lord Byron said, after all, what is a lie? 'Tis but the truth is a masquerade. The truth is a masquerade. So I say to you, Mr Speaker, this is a Prime Minister that is engaging in a deceitful game. A Prime Minister that is determined to wing her way to power and to preserve power on the basis of a lie. On the basis of a lie. At this very moment, when the Australian people are trying to deal with higher interest rates, they are dealing with increased tobacco prices, they are dealing with increased alcohol prices, they are dealing with higher petrol prices, they are dealing with all the challenges of modern life, it is the Labor Party that is introducing a carbon tax. It is the Labor Party that is introducing a mining tax. It is the Labor Party that is introducing a flood tax. It is the Labor Party with absolute disregard for the challenges of every household at the moment to meet the daily bills. That is because we have a liar as a Prime Minister, someone who...
The member for North Sydney withdraw.
We have a Prime Minister that has set out to mislead the Australian people, that has set out to gain power in a partnership with the Greens that is based on an untruth. And I say to you, Prime Minister, if you do have any courage, if you do have any guts, if you have any core principles, Go to the Australian people now and get a mandate for your bad tax.